Ranger Autumn. Already, we're excited to talk with you today. You want to introduce me to the classroom that we have in the auditorium?
Yes, I have with us Campus Canyon, a group of 70 second graders in the visitor center with us.
Oh, wow, that's really exciting. It's nice to meet you, Campus Canyon students. My name is Ranger Ruvain, and right now, I am coming to you from underwater here at Anacapa Landing Cove. But even though I'm underwater inside of a national park and you're on the mainland, I'm still connected to you because I can hear you and you can see and hear me from Channel Islands National Park and Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary. Thanks to this camera and equipment we have with Ranger Mark filming today. So I wonder if we can test that connection and make sure that we're really connected to each other. If on the count of three, Ranger Autumn, you wanted to have the kids say, "Thank you, Mark, for recording us today," we can see just how well we're connected right now.
All right, on the count of three. 1, 2, 3.
Awesome. That sounded fantastic. It's wild to be able to hear you from underwater. But the fact that we're connected today via this program also reflects how all of us around the world are connected to our oceans. Because today is a really special broadcast of Channel Islands Live. Not only are we broadcasting to you at the Visitor Center, we're also doing it on International Seaweed Day and a few days before World Ocean Day. And as we're going to talk about in this program, we are connected to seaweed, whether we're diving inside of a forest of kelp or not. And we're connected to our oceans, whether we live by the ocean or not. So you might have heard me use the word forest there, which might sound a little bit strange from somebody underwater. Because I think in the Moore Park area where our school group is from, and all along the coast, we've heard the word forest before. So I wonder, Ranger Autumn, what first comes to mind? What's the first word that our students from Campus Canyon think of when they hear the word forest?
All right, and the answer is
Animals?
animals.
Animals for sure. I know when I go hiking in a forest on the mainland, I'm always looking out for squirrels or for birds or many other kinds of animals. So that's a great answer. What about another one, Ranger Autumn?
Think of forest. And the answer is
Trees.
trees.
Trees. When I'm hiking in a forest on land, I love walking in and amongst the trees. Here in Channel Islands National Park, we have a very special forest made of trees called the Torrey Pine Forest. These are trees that are found nowhere else on Earth. So forests on land are really special and they're really fun for us to go hiking in, to see animals. But I wonder if together we can investigate how this forest underwater might be similar to a forest on land. Because the forests underwater aren't made of trees, they're made of algae. And for International Seaweed Day, we're going to take a look at a couple of those kinds of algae. So the one right here that Ranger Mark is zooming in on is a very special kind of algae called giant kelp. There's another number of kinds of kelp that can be found in Channel Islands National Park. And giant kelp likes to form canopies. This algae grows really fast, up to 2 feet a day in ideal conditions. And just like a canopy in a forest on land, with tall trees shading out down below, giant kelp likes to make a canopy too. There's actually many kinds of kelp that you'll find in a kelp forest. And on International Seaweed Day, we can see a few more of them. Growing right next to the giant kelp here is a fun species called oarweed, which looks really different from the giant kelp. The giant kelp has these little gas bladders. The fancy term is pneumatocysts. I like to call them air pods because they're filled with little gas that helps the kelp rise up to the surface. I can't hear anything out of them right now. My AirPods must be off. But giant kelp, as a canopy-forming species, has these air pods that rise up to the surface. While oarweed, another kind of kelp, likes to form the understory of the kelp forest and grows pretty close to the benthic area, or the kind of the bottom of the rocky or sandy ecosystem down here. And we even actually have other kinds of kelp growing in the kelp forest too, that Ranger Mark can give us a sneak peek at over here. Because just to my left here, we can see a sea palm, but yet another kind of kelp growing in the forest. So just like in a forest on land, you've got many different types of trees forming the canopy and lower bushes underneath them in the understory. Here in the kelp forest, we also have many different kinds of kelp making up that community or groups of different organisms that live there. And even though this forest is underwater, we're still connected to all the different kinds of kelp that we're seeing on International Seaweed Day. Kelp, like giant kelp, like sea palms, like oarweed, they take in carbon dioxide and they release oxygen in a process called photosynthesis that helps them grow. So every time we take a breath, we're actually using oxygen that was released by the kelp and its friends. So Ranger Autumn, let's try and test this. Let's see if we can all, on the count of 3, take a deep breath together. Are you ready?
1, 2, 3.
And release. Kelp and its friends, other marine algae, produce half of the oxygen on Earth. So half of the breath that we just took was thanks to this kelp. So if we want to say together, Ranger Autumn, thanks for the help, kelp, we can celebrate World Ocean Day together. Are you ready?
1, 2, 3.
Thanks for the help, kelp. Awesome. I feel really connected to you right now, because I can hear you, and together we can celebrate these fantastic seaweeds on International Seaweed Day and for our World Ocean Day broadcast. And as Ranger Mark can show you, we're completely surrounded by many different kinds of seaweeds today. And they're forming that forest underwater. But not only are we connected to the kelp forest because of the air that we breathe and the oxygen in that air, but there's also over 1,000 different species of plants and animals that are connected to the kelp forest too. Because the kelp creates habitat. It provides a home and food for many different species of animals, and even a few plants that are found here. So we can take a look at a few of those today and see how they're connected to the kelp forest. So right here, we have one of my favorite animals that lives in the kelp forest. This is called a warty sea cucumber. Sea cucumbers are in a group of animals called echinoderms, which is a very fancy word that means spiky skin. Sea cucumbers depend on the kelp forest. They live in the kelp, and they like to eat decomposing little bits of kelp and other algae in that benthic community or on the ocean floor. Sea cucumbers are also really cool, because if we flip this around, they have the ability to do something very special. If a sea cucumber feels threatened by another animal living in the kelp forest, it can actually spit out its guts, called evisceration, where they let all of its stomach contents out, try and tangle up and catch the predators, and the sea cucumber will escape and can actually regrow its internal organs. It's pretty wild to me. Imagine if someone scared you and you responded by spitting out your guts in your stomach. Ranger Autumn, do we have any questions from our audience about sea cucumbers?
Question about sea cucumber. All right, and the question is,
How spiky are they?
how spiky are they?
That was a really good question. So that echinoderm family, or the spiky skin, involves a lot of different kinds of animals. Some of them are really spiky. Some of them, like the warty sea cucumber, are just kind of a little bit bumpy. So this guy is not very spiky at all compared to some of its relatives, like a sea urchin. Do we have any other questions about sea cucumbers, Autumn?
All right, the question is,
Why are they called sea cucumbers when they're not a vegetable?
why is it a sea cucumber if it's not a vegetable?
That's a really good question, too. I've never actually tasted one to make sure that they don't taste like vegetables, but they are pretty much shaped like a cucumber. A lot of cucumbers will have like little bumps on their outsides, just like this warty sea cucumber does. And they're long and kind of cucumber shaped. So I think that's where they get their name from. So I'm just going to put this cucumber back right where I found it, here on the ocean floor, to make sure we're not disturbing any of the wildlife in Channel Islands National Park. And I'm going to show you one more friend that Ranger Mark and I made earlier, looking around in the kelp forest. Now, this is another kind of animal that lives in the kelp. And this is a really special one, too. This is actually a type of marine snail called a Kellet's whelk. And a Kellet's whelk is actually a predator. This snail likes to eat other snails and invertebrates, or animals without backbones, that it finds in the kelp forest. There's some real snail-on-snail violence going on here in Channel Islands National Park. The Kellet's whelk has a proboscis, or almost like a tongue-like appendage, that it can stick out of its shell and use it to try and hunt and attack other snails and other animals. The Kellet's whelk also depends on the kelp. It's also connected to the kelp forest, because the kelp forest provides habitat for the whelk and for its prey. So it's connected to the kelp too, just like we are. Now, Ranger Mark and I were looking around this area earlier, and we found a couple of slightly larger animals that also are connected to the kelp. So Ranger Mark is going to take us over there now and take a little look. Just so that we can see who else is connected to the kelp forest. While we pan over here, Ranger Autumn, do we have any other questions from our audience?
All right, the question is,
What does it look like without the shell?
what did the animal look like without the shell?
Oh, that's a really good question. So the killet's whelk without the shell, just like any marine snail. It's kind of slimy, very fleshy, and it's kind of stuck and spiraled inside of here. And it's got a little operculum, or a little hard structure that blocks anybody from getting in. So it almost looks like a slimy pile of goo. And right over here, around the corner, are some friends that we might want to introduce you to. Actually, right down below us, we have a new friend who just swam into the frame. Although they didn't want to cooperate with us today, but if they come back in, we'll come say hi. That fish that we just saw swimming by is called a sheephead. It's another type of animal that lives in the kelp. And they're predators too, just like the animal we're going to introduce you to now. If we take a look into this little rock crevice, is one of my favorite animals that lives in the kelp forest. This is a California spiny lobster. Now, some of us might have even eaten lobster on the mainland, maybe at a seafood restaurant. And a lot of people like to catch lobster in Channel Islands National Park. But right now, we're in an area of Anacapa Island that's protected. We're in a marine reserve. So for decades, animals like the lobster and the sheephead that we saw earlier have been allowed to grow and get big and make more lobster and sheephead without being eaten. Because nobody is allowed to fish within a marine reserve. And because of that, we have really healthy kelp forests inside of Anacapa Landing Cove. Because it's important that we have predators like lobster and sheephead to give balance to the ecosystem. When we overfish lobster and sheephead, there's not enough of the big predators to eat the little animals like urchins that graze on the kelp. So inside of marine reserves, where we have lobsters like the one we're seeing now, we have much healthier kelp forests in the Channel Islands. So that's one way that humans are connected to the kelp, just like the kelp is connected to us. We can help make sure that there are areas where lobsters are able to grow and thrive, like this marine reserve. Now, I wonder, Ranger Autumn, how else we are connected to the kelp. What are some other ways that we can help the kelp, as a sheephead is appearing on camera here to my left, and then bouncing out of frame as well? Does our students have any suggestions of ways that we can help the kelp together?
How can we help the kelp together? What's one way we can help the giant kelp? And the answer is
To not litter.
to not litter.
Oh, that's a really good answer. As my little senorita friend, the long, skinny yellowfish, passes by. Yeah, oftentimes when we are here for this live dive program, Ranger Mark and I will find marine debris or pieces of trash that made their way into the ocean and either wash up on shore or end up in the kelp forest like this with our lobster friends or with the senoritas. It's another way that shows how we are connected to the ocean. If we dispose of our waste properly, if we recycle and reduce the amount of waste that we create, we can make sure less of it ends up in the ocean. And that we can leave this environment cleaner than we found it. So it's not impacting the many animals and kelp that we met today. What about another way, Ranger Autumn? How else can we help the kelp?
How can we help the kelp? And the answer is
To keep the earth healthy and keep helping and never litter.
can help keep the earth healthy and never litter.
Absolutely. That's another great suggestion. Making sure that we don't litter helps keep the kelp forest clean. And keeping the earth healthy is important too. Because the forests that we have underwater are also related to everything else on Earth. Kelp produces oxygen that we use to breathe. Kelp can also help reduce how powerful the waves are close to shore, and to some extent, reduce the amount of erosion in our communities. Especially if you live right by the ocean, that can be really important. Kelp also takes in carbon dioxide, which is a gas that can form like a mini blanket in our atmosphere, making the earth much warmer. So by keeping the kelp healthy, we're keeping all of us healthy because of how connected the kelp is to us. So thank you very much, Ranger Autumn, and for Campus Canyon students for joining us today. I think this has helped me see how much I am connected to many of the kids that are joining us today, the way that they care about our Earth and our ecosystem near World Oceans Day, and how they're inspired to help protect it too. So let's consider not just during this program, but as we go about our days in the future, let's remember how connected we are to the kelp and to our ocean and what we can do to help protect it. Ranger Autumn, thanks so much for joining us. Do we have time for any questions from the audience?
we have a question for Ranger Rouvain. And the question is,
Are sea cucumbers endangered?
Oh, that's a really good question. Are sea cucumbers endangered? I'm just going to look around real quick to see if we have an example of a sea cucumber near me. Apologies for not making eye contact here for a second. Yes, we do. So right here is another example of that warty sea cucumber that we were talking about earlier. When they get scared, they shrivel up into a little spiky ball. When our kelp forest team, who monitors these species, measures them, they have to make sure that they are in their little hard ball-like state first before they measure them. So the question was, are these sea cucumbers endangered? Warty sea cucumbers, specifically, are a species that was getting overfished a few decades ago. Humans were taking too many warty sea cucumbers from our oceans, from our kelp forests. And we were seeing that because of monitoring. Because in Channel Islands National Park, for over 40 years, our biologists have been going to the same sites in our ocean and taking notes on how healthy the kelp is, how healthy the sea cucumbers are, and many other species in order to better tell over the long term how our actions impact the oceans. And so we saw that warty sea cucumbers were declining, and that data from monitoring was part of the decision that was used to create the marine reserve that we're in right now. So because these cucumbers were threatened by action, humans were able to protect them and protect our oceans. We've got time for one other question, Ranger Autumn.
one more question.
As I return this cucumber to where I
And the
found it.
question is,
What do they eat?
what do the sea cucumbers eat?
That's a good question. Cucumbers actually eat a couple different kinds of things. So sea cucumbers are decomposers. So they'll eat decomposing kelp and other algae that they'll find on the ocean floor. But opportunistically, they'll actually be predators. They'll also eat really small invertebrates or animals without a backbone that they find. So they'll grab a little bit of prey if it's around, but also eat a lot of that decomposing matter like kelp on the ocean floor. Another way that kelp is connected to the ecosystem around it on International Seaweed Day. Awesome. Those were incredible questions. And I'm glad that I had a chance to talk with you today and be connected to you through this program.
All right, Campus Canyon, can we say thank you on 3? 1, 2, 3.
Thank you very much. Happy International Seaweed Day. And I hope you have a great World Oceans Day later this week. Take care, everyone.